So now that we have the steering shaft out, I wanted to also change out the gauge cluster. This is a Zenki 1984, 83, 85, I believe. And so the difference with this and the Kouki one is that the internals or the electronics, one or the other, or maybe even both, they're dated. So you can actually notice while you're driving that the needle will bounce up and down as you're driving because the electricals or the mechanicals just can't keep up. So what we do is we get a Kouki one, and you can tell the differences. The Zenki is all black faced. The Kouki has like these lines in them. I don't know if you can see them. Those lines are what differentiate the Zenki from the Kouki. The faces are all the same. You have your fasten your seatbelt stuff here, same as the Kouki. Fuel on the right, fuel on the right. Speedometer, RPM, brake charge, and everything else is the same. So I actually got this one from someone on the Facebook Corolla AE86 forum, and they were actually able to give it the same, about the same mileage as mine. I think it's like 10 miles off, but it should be fine. I mean, you know, 10 miles, it's really nothing. But I wanted to do that because it stays true to my mileage that I have on the car. It's the original mileage from the original owner. And so, yeah, let's swap that out too. So all we're really going to need right now is a Phillips head screwdriver. Take out, well, I guess that one's missing. 3 screws from the centerpiece here. I guess mine had 1. Then you're also going to pull these out. They should just fall off. Sometimes they're a bit hard. I have to put the camera down. Okay, next you take off these little wheels. And I believe that there is another screw holding it in. Oh, I guess I had already taken that one off. But you also have to undo these ones. There's one on each side, right behind the headlight and the wiper switches. If you can get like some pliers, or sometimes they're just hand tightened. But these bad boys are really on there, so, oh, I guess not. This one is hand tightened. It just pops off like that. This one I'm gonna have a small problem with, so let me go get some pliers just to loosen them up. Okay, so I got this one loosened up with the crescent wrench. You know, I always thought that these things were nylon. I'm pretty sure they were on my other Corollas. I think maybe they were making them out of metal for a couple years. I'm not sure. I mean, I've owned Corollas for a little over 10 years now. This is the first time I ever see them in metal. And I know JSP from, they make them, I believe, out of nylon, if I'm not mistaken, or they might be metal too. Either way, JSP, like, they also make a lot of parts for Corollas. Like, they're like I said, it's just one of those amazing companies that are still making parts for old cars so that we can keep them running, keep them alive. And they also made this shift knob. Please ignore the trash all over the place. It's really, this car just hangs out and it's usually used as storage, and so we're finally starting to work on it. but this is one of the shift knobs that they make. But yeah, once you have that out, you can pop this off, and there's going to be a couple of switches that you need to undo the wiring to. That's one, and this one is two. Move it to the side, and then you have access to the plugs here, which also need to come off. Just be careful because they are 30-something years old. They're going to be brittle. You know what? I'm going to need both hands. Okay, now that you have those out, there's another 2, 3, 4 Phillips screws that you need to remove. Okay, so now that we have all 4 screws off, we have to go and pull it off. And now you can see everything on it. This is where your speedometer cable goes, and all of these are your light bulbs for the illumination in the back. Alright, so I took the covers off of them because the one on the Kouki was actually kind of jacked up compared to the one off of my Zenki cluster. But I just wanted to give you guys a better look at how the background of the gauges is all black on the Zenki models. And the ones for the Kouki have these vertical lines running across it. That's how you can tell the difference. Now, unless someone swapped the faces off and, you know, they're just douchebags, but it should respond a lot better when you accelerate. And it should also, your oil pressure should work a lot better. The needle, at least, the gauge itself, should move up and down a lot nicer than the Zenki one would. So to me, it's a pretty good upgrade. The reason why I'm changing it though is because my speedometer was actually not working properly anymore. And if you can tell, the needle on my oil pressure was gone completely. Also, the temperature needle wouldn't ever go up, so I changed out the sensor. That did nothing. I checked the wiring seems fine, and I'm just assuming that the gauge is done itself, so that was another reason. But yeah, let me put it back together and see how it looks. Alright, so now we have our Kouki cluster in, all 4 bolts securely on. Make sure you don't over tighten them because this is 30-something-year-old plastic and it's going to be brittle. So then you take your plugs, you pop them back in, just like that. You get your gauge hood, you plug everything back into it, and same thing, put those screws back in. So once you plugged in your switches, you just bring the hood back up, line it with your switches, just push it in. Again, be real careful with this because it's 30-year-old plastic. And so now you get your special little locking nuts in, And again, you don't have to tighten these with any tools. Normally this is just a kind of a tighten it by hand kind of deal. And once you put both of these in, it'll actually help align on its own, and it'll hold it up for you so that you can get the screws in. Now I am missing some screws, so I'm gonna go through my bolt bucket, see if I have any similar ones lying around. Just hand tighten, that's all it needs. Then you put your discs in. You got to make sure that that flat piece lines up with this flat piece, like so. Same on the other side. Then you get your knob. You also push that in. And just like that, you're good to go. New cluster. Once you get the, well, once I get the steering shaft in, I'll make sure everything works. But if you guys didn't remove your steering shaft or your steering wheel, then you should be done. Me, I still got some work to do. So now that you have it all installed, you just turn on your lights, make sure they all work. Seems like they're all working here. And then you start up your car to make sure that everything else works. And just like any Corolla, there's bound to be an issue. That's what we get for liking these 30-plus-year-old cars, huh? All right, take two, starting up the car to see if the gauges work. So as you can see, the gauge is a lot more responsive. The RPM goes up, the needle goes up with it, to where, as I talked about earlier, the Kouki one, it just responds better. I don't know if it's the electronics or the mechanisms inside running the gauges, but compared to the Zenki, which you know, you accelerate and it would take some time for the needle to jump up, or sometimes it would jump up, hesitate, and then jump back up again. Now with the Kouki one, it just works properly. If you have a Zenki and you want to upgrade to a Kouki, I really recommend you do. Unless you're like a purist. If you're a purist and Kouki has to be Kouki and Zenki has to be Zenki, then I mean, that's on you. But Kouki is the way to go in my book. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I have something to do to the Corolla sometime soon. Thank you very much.